Hello, everybody. This is Ashley, and this is the Addict Mom, SoberThoughts, AddictionTalks podcast. Yes, you see that right. I did change the name just a little bit. My old podcast, well, it is still the same podcast, but the original name was the Addict Mom Podcast, but I did decide to add on the Addict Mom, SoberThoughts, AddictionTalks, because I feel like it kind of explains and maybe a little bit better what my podcast is about. I am sober, and these are my thoughts, and I talk about addiction. So kind of think it's self-explanatory. I hope you like it. I may end up changing it again. I don't know. Anyway, so if you do not keep up with me on Instagram and on TikTok, I am starting on my webpage, my personal website, TheAddictMom.Online. I am starting a new little series, segment, if you will, called Daily Thoughts. Now, these daily thoughts, they're unplanned, they're unscripted, they're very, very raw, unfiltered, very little editing if I have to edit at all. It's just to take out any extra sounds or very, very long pauses that I might have. They are intended for whenever I have a thought of a topic or a thought that I want to get out, I just turn my camera on and I talk. There's no backdrops, no anything. It's just I have something I want to say, I turn the camera on and I say it. Now, the reason I'm putting these on my website, TheAddictMom.Online, is because YouTube and TikTok, their guidelines are so strict and my videos will get banned and flagged. So I can only put so much out on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram before my videos start getting banned. And I built my website for this purpose. I have my blog, and I built it to not be silenced. I built my website to be able to say what I want, say what I need, say what I need to get the relief from my anxiety, to share my story, share my experiences in hopes of helping other people either learn more about addiction or other addicts find the strength to get help and to share their story. That was the purpose of me building my own website. And I'm finally starting that. I am starting my daily thoughts. Now, I will have on YouTube maybe like 7 to 10 minutes of a video on my YouTube kind of explaining what each daily thought video will be about. It'll be kind of going into a little bit of what I'm explaining, but without any of the highly sensitive content. It's just enough, like I said, to draw you in, let you know what I'm going to be talking about. If you so choose to watch the rest of the video, you can go on my website and finish the Daily Thoughts video. Now, I'm also tying, sorry, that was a mess. I am also tying in my podcast with these daily thoughts. A lot of these daily thoughts videos that I film, I'm going to use the sound as my weekly podcasts, because I know a lot of people don't want to watch a video. People would rather just hear the audio. And every daily thoughts video is not going to be a podcast. I am going to use the ones that I feel need to be heard, the very important ones, the ones that people can benefit from listening to and hearing. So this week on my daily thoughts, this week on my podcast, I'm going to use my daily thoughts. It's going to go up, my daily thought, on May 25th, today actually, the same day that my podcast is going up, because it is about a very sensitive subject that I feel needs to be heard. It is about self-harm. And I kind of dive into the parts of self-harm that people don't realize is self-harm. Some maybe daily habits or tendencies that somebody might have. and they don't realize it's self-harm. They don't realize they're actually doing it because the pain drives them to feel alive. And this needs to be heard because so many people do things on a daily basis and they don't even know why they do it. And it could be subconsciously driven because the pain they're feeling is a form of relief from their anxiety. And I kind of dive in, you're about to hear it, it's going to be this podcast, but I dive into abusive relationships, nail biting, skin picking, and many other things that people deal with and go through on a daily basis, and they have no clue why. Why have you been in an abusive relationship for 5 years and you just can't leave? Why can't you leave? Why can't you just say, I've had enough, I deserve better, and leave? Well, there might be a deeper reason behind that other than you simply love your partner. There might be a need to feel that pain you're going through because you're fighting to be alive, and that pain is proof that you're alive. And I go into that more in the podcast. So I feel people need to hear this. So that's why I'm using this week's podcast as my daily thoughts from May 25th. And the daily thoughts is going to be up today, May 25th, as well as my podcast, the audio, is going to be up today, May 25th. And the short video version on my YouTube is also going to be up today. So it's all going to be up today. Normally, it would not be all up on the same day. However, that's just the way it's playing out this week because I've been behind on my editing. So that's how it's going to be this week. With all of that being said, okay, I am going to put a trigger warning in for this week's episode of my podcast and the daily thoughts you're about to hear if you decide to watch it on my website or if you're just going to hear the podcast. There are very, very triggering words and topics discussed. I vividly explain my experience with self-harm and my journey through recovery, and it can be very traumatizing and it can bring up many traumatic events if you are not prepared to hear what I'm saying. So I'm letting you know right now, if you cannot hear about self-harm and everything that goes along with it, how I self-harmed, why I self-harmed, what I would use to self-harm, do not listen to this. If you want to support me, you can support me in other ways. You can play it and mute it so you're not hearing it, but it's still playing through so I can get the revenue off of it. You can share it. You can follow me. You can subscribe to me. You can talk about it. There are other ways you can support me without hearing it and triggering your mental state to go into a bad area. As much as I want to help people, I never want to be the reason somebody relapses, somebody goes backwards, somebody has an anxiety attack, or somebody has a mental breakdown. I never want to be that reason. And this is very, very serious. I take it very serious. I do not ever want anybody to feel attacked, and I never want to offend anybody. And that's why I take so long at the beginning of my videos explaining what I'm going to be talking about, because I want to give you enough time to make your mind up, and I want to give you enough of a buffer room to get used to what you're about to be hearing. I know not a lot of people like my long intros, and if you don't like it, you can speed up. And if you don't need it, you can speed up. But there are some people who may need that buffer and that lead up to kind of calm their anxiety and work themselves up to what they're about to hear. I get that. And as always, if you ever need help finding recovery or finding treatment, you can always message me and I will help you find it in your area. I can guide you in the right direction. If you ever need to vent, you can always reach out to me. I am willing to hear anybody for any reason. If you don't want me to talk back, you just want to get it off your chest, I'm here for you. If you want to remain anonymous, go ahead, that's fine. If you would like me to reply back, let me know. Hey, can you reply back? Can I get your input? Sure, I will. I'm always there for anybody who needs me. because I understand how it feels to have nobody to talk to. So, with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you would like to see the video version, go to my website, TheAddictMom.Online. And I hope it helps you. I hope it helps you understand yourself. I hope it helps you understand your loved ones. And I hope it helps you understand self-harm and why some people would do it. Make wise choices and be safe out there, because it gets scary out there in the world. And know you're never alone. I'm always here if you need me. This is a very, 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 very touchy subject for obvious reasons. I started self-harming. I was about 12 years old, and I started with cutting. I started with a razor, like a shaving razor, tear my stomach up. Tear it up. Like, I look back and I don't even know how I survived it, because the pain alone was so bad. I mean, I think back and it was so bad. Like, at my poor 12-year-old self, I was in so much pain. And I think back that I was in so much pain emotionally and mentally. I was willing to put up with the amount of pain I caused myself physically. And that is so sad to me. And then I started with my stomach, cutting. And then I progressed onto my arms, up and down my arms, up and down my legs, my chest, my neck. And then I moved into burning myself. I don't want to give anybody ideas on how I would do things, but back in the day, people would take erasers and burn themselves. So I'm not going to say how, because I don't want to give people ideas on how to do something, but I'm just telling my story. So I am in no way telling anybody to do this, and I am in no way giving examples of how to harm yourself. I'm sharing my story. I'm telling you what I went through, what I did, for educational purposes only, and to help better understand why somebody would do this, why I did it. That's it. So I'm not going to go into detail how I did something. Like I said, obvious reasons. But I went from cutting to burning myself, and then I went into ripping skin off. So I guess the scabs that would form from burning myself, I would rip those off. I started self-harming. I was sexually assaulted at the age of 11 by somebody I should have been able to trust. And that really nobody knew about it for 4 years, and that took a huge toll on my mental health. Nobody knew until I was about 14. I had a lot of demons I was fighting on the inside because I knew something was wrong. I didn't realize how wrong it was. So I knew it was a man. I knew what he had done to me. I knew it wasn't okay, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I thought, somebody loves you, this is what they do. But why does it feel so wrong? Why am I so uncomfortable? Why do I not like the way this feels? When I was about 14 years old, in sex ed health class in 7th grade, that's when I was taught about sexual abuse, sexual assault, stuff like that. And that's when it clicked for me what happened. That's when I realized I was sexually assaulted, sexually abused. And maybe a week or two after I realized is when I told my mom. And then I was already in therapy at that time. And she went and told my therapist, she got the law involved, and we went forward with life. Now, at this time, I was already in therapy because not even a full year before this, maybe like 8 to 10 months before this, I reached out for help in what I call my final scream for help. Because if I did not get help when I did, I would not be here today. And I was cutting and burning, and I was severely bulimic and anorexic. I would go back and forth. So like 6 months I would be bulimic, and then I would just stop eating. In general, I would just stop eating for 6 months at a time. And then most of the time I was bulimic. I would be binging and purging. But like I said, every few months, for a few months, I would just stop eating. And it was bad. It was so bad. I couldn't drink water without making myself puke it up. It was bad. And this happened I was like 12 when that started. So at this point, I was bulimic and anorexic going back and forth from the time I was 12 to about 18, on and off. And it was really, really bad. So I was in therapy. I'm jumping ahead. So when I was about 13, all this stuff was going on. And I was also on drugs. I'd also tried meth and coke. Those were the first 2 drugs I had tried that I had. So I was 13 on meth, on coke, cutting, burning, bulimic, anorexic. It was just bad. I hated myself. And ultimately, I tried taking my own life a few times with cutting as deep as I could. And it just didn't work. I was uneducated, which I'm glad. And it was really painful, really messy, but thankfully I'm still here. And I was in class one day before I realized I was sexually assaulted. Literally snapped one day in class. I was sitting in class one day and I got an urge to go harm myself. And I was thinking to myself, why don't I just go to the roof of this school and jump off the building? And nobody knew. Like, nobody knew I was suffering. Nobody. My mom was uneducated at the time. She saw the cuts on my arms for years, and I would lie and say it was my cat. I got hurt. I would just lie. And she believed me because I was laughing. And I faked it, and I put a front on, and nobody knew. I wore a mask because I didn't want people to know until I did. And I was in class and I thought, why don't I just jump off this building and I'll be done? I don't have to do this anymore. And I raised my hand. I asked the teacher, I need to go to the office. And my teacher said, okay. They gave me a hall pass. And I remember walking down the hall and I said, there was an exit. Like I could have exited and gone up these stairs to go to the roof of the school. Or I could went downstairs to go to the front office. And I remember telling myself, reach out for help. And if they don't believe me, then go jump off. I said that to myself. I said, wait, at least try to reach out. Try. And I went to the front office. I went to the guidance counselor. Ironically, this guidance counselor is her son. Later on in life, I would go on to date for 5 years. Very weird. Her son, I would go on to date for 5 years later on in my life when I was 21. He would be the man that my daughter knows as daddy. Very crazy how the world works. Anyway, reverting back to when I was reaching out for help. So I go into the guidance counselor's office, and I walk in her office, and I go, I think I need help. She looked at me, and I pull up my sleeves, and I pull up my shirt, and I just like, I need help. I don't want to live. She just looked at me. She was like, okay, sit down. What's your name? I told her my name, and she said, I'll be right back. She went. Now, I didn't know what she was doing at the time. I was terrified. I was terrified that they were going to call the cops. I thought I would get arrested. I thought I was going to go to jail. I thought she was going to call the cops and I would go to jail for harming myself. I didn't know what the consequences were. I thought, oh, I'm harming someone, even though it's myself, so I'm going to go to jail. I've been lying to people. I'm going to go to jail. That's what I thought. Or I thought they would send me away to like some psych ward, and I would be strapped down to a bed for a year, and I wouldn't see my family, and I wouldn't see my parents, and nobody would listen to me again. I was terrified. Like, I was shaking because I didn't want to be taken away from my parents. I didn't want to be locked away I just wanted to be heard. And I wanted to fix whatever was wrong with my brain, what I thought was wrong with my brain. At the time, she was calling my mom, and she was like, you need to get down here, whatever. I don't know exactly what she said to my mom, but she was like, I have your daughter in the office. She is okay, but you need to get down here now. So my mom comes in. And keep in mind, like, we grew up poor. Like, we had no money. My dad was working his ass off to barely, like, we were poverty level. Like, we wouldn't eat so my little siblings could eat. My parents wouldn't eat so we could eat. It was bad. It was bad. We would get, like, new clothes once a year, and it wasn't even, like, we would go to Walmart and pick out, like, a few pairs of pants for school and a few pairs of shorts or shirts. It was bad. Like, we had no money. And I say that to say we had no means of getting help for me. And I knew that. We had no way of saying, oh, let's go pay for a therapist. And this is back in 2003, like, before insurance really saw therapy as a necessity, before they saw mental health issues as a necessity. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, we don't have money to help me. Like, what is going to happen to me? Like, how? You know, I didn't want to stress my parents out with that even more because we barely had money to feed me and my siblings. We didn't have money for electric bills. We didn't have money for gas. Like, we couldn't even drive the car. And I was thinking, I was like, does my mom even have gas to come up here right now? Like, what? How am I even going to get to therapy if we don't have money for gas? This is stuff I was thinking about when I was 13. How is my dad going to come up here and help me? He can't leave work. Like, he has to stay there and make money. This is stuff I was thinking about because I'm like, we don't even have money for this. What am I doing? I'm so selfish. But it had already happened. I had already reached out for help. So I'm terrified, okay? So anyway, she called my mom. My mom walks in, and I'll never forget the look on her face. She was so confused, and she was just confused and worried, scared. Like, what happened? Like, when did this happen? What happened? And she walked in and she sat down next to me and she just hugged me. She just held me. And she started crying and I started crying and the counselor shut the door and we sat there for a while because she was talking to me. Like, she wanted to get to the bottom of as much as she could for the rest of the day, like hours. Like, I had to forget school. I was just in her office. And then she got us set up with a therapist, thank God. And it was, like, free to kids in my city. I don't want to give the name away just because, but it was free and they accepted, like, Medicaid. They accepted all insurances, but it was free for the kids and it also helped the parents. So she got us set up with that. I started therapy within, like, a few weeks. And I was terrified. I was terrified because by this point, my dad wasn't there yet. It was just my mom. And I was terrified that when we left, my mom would be mad at me. Like, I was terrified she was putting on a front. And my mom wasn't like that. Like, my mom wasn't like that. But I was terrified that she would be mad at me for doing this. And in the office, she was holding me. She was crying. And she was saying how much she loved me. But I was terrified that when we left, that would change. And then it would kind of hit her. And then she would get mad at me. Like, she would realize and then she would get mad at me and blame me for this happening to myself. That didn't happen, obviously. And then we get home, my dad comes home, and I was terrified. I thought he was going to be mad at me. Because my dad is very, well, at the time, he was a very willpower over weakness. He is the type who believes you have willpower to overcome anything. And I thought he would think I was weak and he wouldn't love me anymore. And he would, say, I don't want to be your dad anymore. And I was just terrified. I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want my siblings to know. I was just terrified because I didn't know what was going to come next. So he gets home and he just hugs me. And we didn't talk about much that day. They asked me if I wanted to talk, and I was like, well, not really, not now, And we go to therapy really soon after, like a week later, maybe, not even. And I start therapy. And that's when the first few sessions I was really quiet. I was terrified. I was scared. I knew I wanted to help, but I was too scared to talk. And I finally opened up after a few sessions, and that's when I start just telling everything, my drug usage. I didn't tell the extent of my drug usage. I did say I had tried meth and coke. I didn't say the extent that I was on it, I was actively using, but my parents knew, they're not ignorant to that part. I told them about all the self-harm I was doing, the bulimia, the anorexia, and we all got help over years. It wasn't just magically fixed, I continued to do that, and it's not like it got better quickly at all. It took years of therapy twice a week, and my parents had to do therapy and family therapy, and it was terrifying. So I've been self-harming from a very, very young age, and I say all of that, okay, to go into the next segment of this that I want to talk about, I want to discuss is there were other forms of self-harm I didn't realize was self-harm until a few years ago. I didn't realize, I'm 30 now, I didn't realize certain things I was doing as part of a self-harm coping mechanism until I was about 28 when I realized. And a lot of it, for instance, I'm a chronic nail biter. And y'all may be like, oh, that's nasty. Yeah, it is nasty. I'm not just a nail biter. It's not just something I do when I'm anxious. I rip my nails off. I will split them, and if you look at my nails, they're so damaged they don't even grow because I peel them off. I peel them layer by layer. It's so thinking about it is so painful, but in the moment, I do it to this day. In the moment when I'm doing it is how I cope with mental turmoil. And I do it with the skin and my cuticles. I rip my cuticles and my skin on my fingers off. I didn't realize that was a form of self-harm. I thought I'm a nail biter because I have anxiety. I didn't realize it was a form of coping, and that is self-harm. I'm telling you, I'm letting you know that is self-harm. You're harming yourself as a way to cope with whatever you're coping with, mental, emotional, other physical pain, whatever. That's how you cope. Another form of self-harm is allowing yourself to be hurt by people you love. Let me explain. And when I say allowing yourself, I'm not talking about physical abuse. You're the reason you're getting abused. That's not what I mean. Not victim blaming. What I mean is, you're with somebody who keeps cheating on you, and he's cheating, okay? But you think you deserve it, and you're doing it to feel the pain because you think the pain is what keeps you alive. If you could feel the pain, you're still fighting. I did that for many, 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 many years up until a year and a half ago. I would put myself around people who would hurt me just so I could fight them back, so I knew I was alive. That is a form of self-harm. And it's not discussed the way it needs to be discussed. People don't know they're practicing in self-harm techniques if they don't know it's self-harm techniques. Nail biting, pulling off your skin, picking scabs, scratching your body, okay, scratching your face, your acne. And you're doing it because you want to feel the pain, because you're addicted to feeling the pain. Like I said, the emotional, mental pain of being in an abusive relationship. Knowing, like I said, I'm not victim blaming. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's fighting back gives you a purpose. I don't know how else to explain it. There's a part of self-harm that is not discussed openly. And for those of us who are not financially secure enough to be able to go see somebody once or twice a week and be told what we're doing is harmful to our health, we don't know what we're doing wrong. Or it's not even necessarily wrong. I don't want to say that and make you seem like you're the one who is wrong. We don't know what we're doing. It's harmful. We have no clue. We feel like when we're in an abusive relationship, the only way to live is to fight to be alive. And without that pain, without the mental torture, without the emotional torment, without the narcissistic tendencies that we're allowing into our life, we feel like we're not truly living because we're not feeling the pain we're used to feeling, or we're not feeling the pain that we need to feel to cope with our past traumas. And that is not discussed, and I want to discuss it. I want to talk about it because people right now are in an abusive relationship, whether it's a friend, a boyfriend, their parents, whomever it is, and they not leaving because they think it's normal, because they feel that pain is giving them purpose to live. They feel like they're not living unless they feel the pain, because they're not truly alive unless they have some sort of clarification that they're alive. And that pain, mental, emotional, physical, that is their proof that they're alive. And I want you to know, if this is you, if you didn't even know it was you, maybe I just said something and it just clicked in your mind and you're like, whoa, this is starting to make sense. You're not alone. You're not alone. And I want you to know you're worth so much more than this pain you are forcing yourself to go through because you feel there's no other way to live. There is another way to live. And it's happiness. It's happiness and it's self-love and it's finding your self-worth, and that's hard to do. And that leads me into my next little segment, is how I moved beyond my self-harming. How did I learn to live a life without harming myself? I want to talk real quick. In my addiction, I was an IV user. I don't know if I've made that clear. I was an IV user for 5 years. Shooting drugs, when people are IV users, a big part of their addiction, okay, is the physical pain that comes with shooting up, because it hurts, especially when you're not using fresh needles every time, especially when you've been using the same needle for 2-3 weeks in a row, months, and I know it's dirty. That's why I have hepatitis C, because I did it to myself. Anyway, I was reckless and I was irresponsible. Don't do the things I did. That's why I'm talking about it. Hopefully to deter people, because now I'm suffering the consequences of my very reckless, very irresponsible actions. That prick of that needle, however many times a day you do it, that in itself is a physical addiction, a mental addiction, an emotional addiction. When you poke yourself, it's not only shooting the drug and you get high. That feeling of it is a release mentally and emotionally. And it's like you feel that pain and it releases endorphins in itself. You don't even push the syringe yet and you're feeling the warmth and you're getting that flood of chemicals in your brain already going off just from the pain of putting it in your arm. That alone was very hard for me to walk away from, because that was my new pain. The last time I self-harmed myself was in 2016. I cut myself. That was the last time I did it. And what stopped me is I was sitting in a bathtub and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, it's getting me nowhere. And that was my own realization. That was my own epiphany I had with myself. I was in a bathtub listening to depressing ass music, and I had cut, and I don't know why I'm whispering. It's weird, but I'm sorry. And I had cut myself, and I was in the bathtub, and I remember thinking, I was like, what is this doing for me? Why am I doing this? From the age of about 22. I'm sorry, my nose rings are really getting to me right now. I told you I hate these nose rings. So from the age of like 22 to maybe 26, I would self-harm, like cut and burn on and off. But I had also started shooting when I was around 22, 23. So I had replaced cutting with shooting, like IV drug usage. And the last time I cut, I just was like, this is going nowhere in my life. This is doing nothing for me. And it's doing no good for me. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to stop. But I had, like I said, replaced it with IV drug usage. And there were days I didn't even, when I would run out of my drug, my hit, because I was on heroin, I would run out. And I would just poke myself with the needle. I would just poke myself. And I would use hot water, almost like as a placebo, just to feel it. Because that was my new form of self-harm. And at the time, I didn't realize, of course, I didn't understand. All I knew is when I did this to myself, I got a release. And when I did this, it felt good. And when I did this, it took away my anxiety just a little bit. And then a few years ago when I got into treatment and when I got sober and I was in therapy and I started realizing I never truly stopped harming myself, I would just replace it with one thing after another, after another, after another. And now I still peel the skin off my fingers. I still bite my nails. I will have a bloody mess multiple times a day because it's what I do. That I have not learned how to overcome, and I've not learned how to cope yet. I'm learning though, I'm trying. But ultimately, I have not cut myself since 2016. And like I said, it was me, it still is. I don't want to say it was. To this day, I get the urge to do it, and I just tell myself, it's going to do no good for me. Kind of like how I talk about my drug usage. Because when I get it's like a craving when you harm yourself. It's a craving, kind of like a food, like a drug. You want to feel it so bad. And you know the release you're going to get as soon as you do it. And it's so easy. You could take a pen or a pencil and just stab yourself and boom, you get release. You get relief. But you also have to remind yourself, if I do that, no good is going to come from it. No good. Just like if I relapse and use drugs, no good is going to come from it. I may feel good in the moment for a few minutes, but that's it. It's not even going to be worth it. And that's what I tell myself. I have to keep reminding myself it's not worth it. The few moments of relief I get is not worth my sobriety. It's not worth my self-peace. It's not worth my inner peace. It's not worth my self-esteem going down the drain, because also when you harm yourself, you have very, very little self-worth, because not only are you harming a human being, yourself, now you have scars that are ugly. Well, you feel some people feel the scars are ugly. Some people are empowered by them when they get in recovery, and they're empowered by them, which is awesome. I'm not there yet. So now your self-worth goes down even more because now you have scars. And then you harm yourself even more because you hate yourself even more. And it literally is just a vicious circle that keeps, and it's spiraling. It's a vicious circle that just spirals down, 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 and down. And in, like I've said before, you can always get buried deeper. You can always find a new bottom. And the ultimate bottom that you'll land at is death. It can always get worse. It can always get deeper for you. And I've learned that. So if you think you're better, if you think you're healed, as long as you're still living, there's always a new bottom for you to reach. And I've learned that. And that's what I tell myself. I don't say that in a negative way. And this is where difference of opinions come in. Some people might hear what I just said and be like, well, damn, that's depressing. I don't think of it as depressing. I think of it as, as long as I'm living, it can always get worse. Like, there's always a new bottom. So I need to keep trying my hardest to keep digging myself up, like out of my hole. If I bring myself down into it again, I need to find a way to get out of that, because I can always go deeper down until I'm dead. I can always fight until I'm dead. And that's how I take it. And I know some people might take that the complete opposite way. Like, damn, if it can always get worse, what's the point in trying? I don't see it like that. If you do, that's you. That's cool. That I respect your opinion and your thoughts. That's cool. Not cool that you think it that way. I mean, it's okay that we have a difference of opinions and viewpoints. So today's daily thoughts, it kind of all over the place. I have a lot to say. Like I say all the time, I have a lot to say. I have a lot of thoughts kind of all over the place in my head. I don't have like a one-track mind. It's not just a straight and narrow thought. I go back and forth. I go from the past to the future to the present. I talk about 5 different things in one, and I'm sorry if my videos are confusing to you. I apologize. I edit them as best as I can, but ultimately I'm all over the place, and I have a lot to say, and I'm practicing, and I'm learning how to narrow my words and my thoughts down into one subject or 2 subjects, but that's very hard to do. And I hope today's daily thoughts about self-harm kind of helped a little bit. Maybe it helped you realize something. Maybe it opened your mind to something, that self-harm is something that needs to be talked about. It is a sensitive subject, so don't talk about it and don't listen to it unless you know you're ready. If you're still in the middle of self-harming yourself and you're not strong enough to hear other people's opinions, don't listen to it yet. Get help for yourself. And if you can't afford help, like you just don't have the financial means to do therapy, you listen to people on YouTube and learn how to journal, learn how to teach yourself to cope. You can always teach yourself how to cope. You just have to do what's right for you. And the only way to find out what is right for you is to practice, research. What are different ways to cope? Try it, and either it works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, move on to the next thing to try. If it does work, cool, that works. Now that this works, let me figure out my triggers. Let me figure out how to cope. Let me figure out my trauma. Let me figure out what happened, why it happened, and why I choose to cope the way I do. And then learn how to cope better. And then from there, you can learn to do better. It's not going to be overnight. I got into treatment in May of 2017, and a lot of these realizations I am just now having. Like today, yesterday, a few months ago, I am just now feeling emotions that I have been hiding since I was 11 years old. And in me discovering these memories I've suppressed and emotions I've hid, I'm learning so much about myself and so much about my mental illnesses and so much about my substance abuse. And I just want to let you guys know what I'm learning, because maybe it can help you, or maybe it can teach you about a loved one who is suffering, because it's not easy. It is so hard going through this. Mental illness alone is hard, and almost everyone I've ever met has some sort of mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, substance abuse, anorexia, bulimia, a multitude of eating disorders. I met somebody who had Munchausen syndrome and just had to have their child sick. I met a few people with Stockholm syndrome, like severe Stockholm syndrome, who literally believed their abuser, like they thought their abuser was doing it for the best of them. That was intense, talking to somebody with that syndrome. And they know they're being hit, they know they're being abused, and they believe it's for the best. That is so intense. And my point being is that a lot of people suffer with a mental illness or a mental disorder but nobody talks about it because it's such a sensitive subject and people are so scared to trigger people. And I think a big part of helping yourself is to learn to walk away when you are being triggered. And the only way you're going to know what a trigger is to talk about it. You don't know if something's a trigger until you go to talk about it and you start getting these feelings, and you need to learn those feelings, the difference between anxiety and a little bit of uncomfort or discomfort, and you need to learn how to cope with that. And in your own time, yes, I agree 100%. But you need to learn what is truly a trigger and what is just a little bit uncomfortable for you to talk about. And in that, you need to learn how to walk away. And you need to learn how to push forward when you can push forward. And that's why I make these. I've been through a lot. Like I said, I'm not opening up 100% yet because it's hard to do. But as I open up, I hope it helps you, you meaning whoever you are watching this that you need to right now. I hope it helps you, because I know when I was in my active addiction and when I was at my absolute lowest point, I would have done anything to have someone to look up to. I would have done anything to have someone tell me what helped them. I wish back in my manic state, someone grabbed me and shook me and said, stop. This is what helped me. You try it. Try to cope. Try to handle your emotions like a mature person. I wish somebody did that. Nobody ever did. Everyone gave me space. Everyone said she needs time, give her space. I wish someone said, mature and handle your shit. I know not a lot of people think like that, but I wish someone did that to me. And I'm telling you, whoever needs to hear this, handle your shit. You need to handle your shit, because you don't want to be 30 living at home with your parents, not even graduated with your bachelor's yet, with 2 kids, not knowing what the hell your life is going to be like in 5 years. You don't want that. I'm telling you, you don't want that. It's not a good life. You don't want to have that. You want to be 30 with either your own home or in an apartment, happy, whether you're single or with somebody, whether you have kids or not. You want to have a career. You want to have money saved up. You want to have your own car. You want to have your own place to live. You want to be good. You want to be set. You don't want to be struggling because of choices you made, because you never handled your shit. And that's hard to admit. I didn't handle my shit. Now I'm passing it on to my next generation, and I don't want to do that. So I'm trying my best to change it, and hopefully we can change it together, and the next generation can learn how to handle their shit and learn how to cope and make mature, wise decisions. So I'm gonna go because I have a lot of editing to do, and I really want to get this up today. So as always, make wise choices and be good out there. I know it's hard. It's very, very hard. And message me if you ever want or need help finding treatment. I can help you. Message me your name and your zip code, and I'll help you out. Okay? You have a good day. Bye.
Intentions rarely matter. We are where we have to be. Do you think you have control? Are you really free? The fire's in your face. I know you feel it's here. You try to put it down, but somehow it's still it. I know I'm not supposed to, but I can't abstain. From wondering where you are, maybe still behind your body. this road with no beginning? Or are we staying still and losing our entire